भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Today we are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 13, starting on verse 38. Atha jagama bhagavan naradaha saha tamburuhu pratyuttaya bhivadhyaha sanujo bharchayan munim.
While Sanjaya was thus speaking, Sri Narada, the powerful devotee of the Lord, appeared on the scene carrying his tumburu. Maharaj Yudhishthir and his brothers received him properly by getting up from their seats and offering obeisances.
Yudhishthir uvacha Naham veda gatim pitror Bhagavan kva gata vitaha Ambava hata putrata kva gata cha tapashvini.
Maharaj
Iva pare Bhagavan paradarshakaha Atha bhabashe Bhagavan Narado munisatmaha.
You are like a captain of a ship in a great ocean, and you can direct us to our destination. Thus addressed the godly personality, Devasi Narada, greatest of the philosopher devotees, began to speak.
Naraduvacha Ma kanchana sucho rajan yadishvara vasham jagat lokaha sapala yasyeme vahanti balim isituhu sa samyunakti bhutani sa eva viyunakti cha.
Sri Narad said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is he only who brings them together and disperses them.
Yata gavo nasi protas tantyam bhadascha dhamabhihi vaktantyam namabhirt pada vahanti balam ishituhu.
As a cow bound through the nose by a long rope is conditioned, so also human beings are bound by different Vedic injunctions and are conditioned to obey the orders of the Supreme.
Yata krido pashkaranam yo samyoga vigama viha ichaya kridituhu syatam tataiva sechaya ninam.
As a player sets up and disperses his playthings according to his own sweet will, so the supreme will of the Lord brings men together and separates them.
Yanmanasye dhruvam lokam adhruvam vanachobhayam sarvata nahi sochaste snehad anyatra mohajat.
O king, in all circumstances, whether you consider the soul to be an external principle, or the material body to be perishable, or everything to exist in the impersonal absolute truth, or everything to be an inexplicable combination of matter and spirit, feelings of separation are due only to illusory affection and nothing more.
Tasmajahi anga vaiklavyam ajnana kritam atmanaha katam tva anataha kripana varteram stecha mam vina.
Therefore, give up your anxiety due to ignorance of the self. You are now thinking of how they who are helpless of all creatures will exist without you.
Kala karma gunadhino dehoyam pancha bhautikaha katam anyam stu gopayet sarpa grasto yata param.
This gross material body, made of five elements, is already under the control of eternal time, kala, action, karma, and the modes of material nature, guna. How then can it, being already in the jaws of the serpent, protect others?
अहस्तानि सहस्तानाम् अपदानि चतुष्पदाम् फल्गुनि तत्र महतां जीवो जीवस्य जीवनम्.
Those who are devoid of hands are prey for those who have hands. Those devoid of legs are prey for the four-legged. The weak are the subsistence of the strong, and the general rule holds that one living being is food for another.
तदिदं भगवान् राजन् एक आत्मात्मनां स्वदृक् अन्तरोऽनन्तरो भाति पश्यतं माययोरुधा.
Therefore, O king, you should look to the Supreme Lord only, who is one without a second and who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without.
सोऽयमाद्य महाराजा भगवान् भूतभावनः कालरूपोऽवतीर्णो शाम् अभावाय सुरद्विषाम्.
That Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, in the degrees of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world.
निष्पादितं देवकृत्यम् अवशेषं प्रतीक्षते तावद्यूयम् अवीक्षद्वं भवेद् यावद् इहेश्वरः.
The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods, and he is awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on earth.
धृतराष्ट्रसह भ्रात्रा गन्धार्या च स्वभार्यया दक्षिणेन हिमवत ऋषीणाम् आश्रमं गतः.
O king, your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidura, and his wife Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalaya mountains, where there are shelters of the great sages.
श्रोतभिः सप्तभिर्या वै स्वर्धूनि सप्तधा व्यधात् सप्तानां प्रीतये नाना सप्तश्रोतः प्रचक्षते.
The place is called Saptasrota, divided by seven, because there the waters of the sacred Ganges were divided into seven branches. This was done for the satisfaction of the seven great rishis.
स्नात्वानुस्व सवनं तस्मिन् हुत्वा चाग्निं यथा विधि अभक्ष उपशान्तात्मा स आस्ते विगतैषणः.
On the banks of Saptasrota, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily, in the morning, noon, and evening, by performing the Agni Hotra sacrifice with fire and by drinking only water. This helps one control the mind and senses and frees one completely from thoughts of familial affection.
जितसानो जितश्वासः प्रत्यर्थषद् इन्द्रियः हरिभावनया द्वष्ट रजः सत्वतमो मलः.
One who has controlled the sitting postures, the yogic asanas, and the breathing process can turn the senses towards the absolute personality of Godhead, and thus become immune to the contaminations of the mode of the material nature, namely mundane goodness, passion, and ignorance.
विज्ञानात्मनि संयोग्य क्षेत्रज्ञे प्रविलाप्यतं ब्रह्मणि आत्मानम् आधारे गताम्बरम् इवाम्बरे.
The Thrashra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness. As a living entity, one with the Supreme Brahman, being freed from the blocked sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky.
Tvashtamaya gunodarko niruddha karana shayaha nivartita kilahara आस्ते stanur iva chalaha tarayo maiva buhu sanyasta kila karmanaha.
You will have to suspend all the actions of the senses, even from the outside, and will have to be impervious to the interactions of the senses, which are influenced by the modes of material nature. After renouncing all material duties, you must become immovably established beyond all sorts of hindrances on the path.
Sava adyatanad rajan partah panchame hani kalevaram hashati swam tacha bashmi bhavishyati.
O king, he will quit his body, most probably on the 5th day from today, and his body will turn to ashes.
Tayamane knibhirdehe patuhu patni sahotaje Baihi stitapatim sadvi tam yagyam anuvekshati.
While outside observing her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power along with the thatched cottage, his chaste wife will enter the fire with a rapt attention.
Virastu tad ascharyam nishamya kurunandana harsha shoka yutastasmad ganta tirtha nishivekaha.
Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage.
Iti uktvar iti uktva taruhat swargam naradaha sahatam buruhu yudhishthiro vachastasya hridi kritva jahachuchaha.
Having spoken thus, the great sage Narada, along with his Vina, ascended into outer space. Yudhishthira kept his instruction in his heart, and so was able to get rid of all lamentations.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, Keshav. Well done. Share my screen now. Hey. Too many pop-ups coming these days on new Zoom. Hey. Hare Krishna, everybody. So we will be studying from Canto 1, continuing the chapter 13, starting verse number 48 until 50. 48, 49, and 50 today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyatam Tato Jayamudire. Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Verse 48. Tad idam Bhagavan Rajan Ekatmatmanam Swadrek Antaro Anantaro Bhati Pashyatam Mayayorudha. Synonyms. Tat, therefore, idam, this manifestation, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Rajan, O King, Ekah, one without a second, Atma, the super soul, Atmanam, by his energies, Swadrik, qualitatively like him, Antaraha, without, Anantaraha, within and by himself, Bhati, so manifests, Pashya, look, Tam, unto him only, Mayaya, by manifestations of different energies, Rudha, appears to be many. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Therefore, O King, you should look to the Supreme Lord only, who is one without a second and who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without. Purport. Would anyone like to please read the purport today?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much for saying Mataji. You can read a little bit slowly. Okay.
Okay. The Supreme Lord, personality of God, is one without a second. But he manifests himself by different energies because he is by nature blissful. The living beings are also manifestations of his marginal energy, qualitatively one with the Lord. And there are innumerable living beings both within and without the external and internal energies of the Lord. Since the spiritual world is a manifestation of the Lord's internal energy, the living beings within that internal potency are qualitatively one with the Lord without contamination from the external potency. Although qualitatively one with the Lord, the living being, due to contamination of the material world, is pervertedly manifested, and therefore he experiences so-called happiness and distress in the material world. Such experiences are ephemeral and do not affect the spirit's soul. The perception of such ephemeral happiness and distress is due only to the forgetfulness of his qualities, which are equal to the Lord's. There is, however, a regular current from the Lord himself, from within and without, by which to rectify the fallen conditions of the living being. From within, he corrects the desiring living being, his local light Paramatma, and from without, he corrects by his manifestations. The spiritual master and the release scriptures. One should look upon unto the Lord. One should not be disturbed by the so-called manifestation of happiness or distress, but he should try to cooperate with the Lord in his outward activities for correcting the fallen souls. By his order only, one should become a spiritual master and cooperate with the Lord. One should not become a spiritual master for one's personal benefit, for some material gain, or as an avenue of business or occupation for earning livelihood. Bona fide spiritual masters who look upon the Supreme Lord to cooperate with him are actually qualitatively one with the Lord, and the forgetful ones are perverted reflections only. Yudhishthira Maharaj is advised by Narad, therefore, not to be disturbed by the affairs of so-called happiness and distress, but look only unto the Lord to execute the mission for which the Lord has descended. That was his prime duty. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So recite Mangalaswaram prayers before we start discussing. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Tadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvaiva Cha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschad Deshatarine Gam Garoti Vachalam Pangham Langhaite Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurudena Karanam Paramanandamam Chaitanya Hare Krishna devotees, thank you so much for being here on this long weekend Saturday. And many would have chosen out to go out in the 3 days in the beach or somewhere We had a good sunshine here today anyway. It was a good holiday. So what a beautiful day to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are now in the verse number 48. Yudhishthira Maharaj was, when not finding Dhritarashtra and Vidur, both of his uncles, he was quite devastated, very worried. And as he was worried, that's when the Narad Muni, the great Narad Muni appears. It's interesting that Narad Muni always appears whenever there is a difficult situation for the devotees. He's always there. It's amazing. It appears like he can hear and he can see all his devotees, all the devotees of the Lord, that he's able to manifest exactly the time when he's needed. This is the power of great souls. As for Narad Muni, is no different from the Lord himself. The Lord's devotees are no different from the Lord. So they are always there to help the devotees, always there to support them, guide them, give them the right direction. Now, Yudhishthira Maharaj, what can we speak about Yudhishthira Maharaj? Now, if we see what his situation is and we know all these things, but I feel like we can discuss this again and again and again. How many difficulties Dhritarashtra had given to Yudhishthira Maharaj, how many atrocities. And until the last moment, when they were little children, he actually made a plan so that they can all die in that, house of luck. And in Iskon even, his sons were poisoning Pandavas. And later on, they took away all the kingdom that was given to them. First of all, what was given to the Pandavas was very unfair, deserted land, but the Lord, Supreme Lord Krishna, helped them in the situation to make that as the most wonderful place on the planet at the time. So again, the Dhritarashtra and the Duryodhana and all the party was not happy with. They were so envious. So they tricked Yudhishthira Maharaj into playing that gambling match. And then they insulted their wife. And again, second time, they did the same thing. And they sent Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, all the family, to the forest for another 12 plus 2 years. And then come back asking for minimum. Lord himself went for a negotiation. When Dhritarashtra was sitting there, he was the king. And his own son, says that I will not give land more than tip of a needle. Yeah. And in fact, at the same time, Dhritarashtra sent a message via Sanjay or Vidur, I can't remember. But the gist of that was, he was saying to Yudhishthira, and he was giving a lot of, sharing spiritual knowledge, saying, why do you need to be after all this kingdom? Body is temporary, all the positions are temporary. We're all going to die any day, any time, anyhow, sorry. And so why do you want to fight for all these things? You've now been in the forest for 12, 40 years, and you must be pretty used to it. People try to go to forest after Vanaprastha. Now you have already lived there, for you it is no difficulty. So why do you want to come back into this, mess here of the material world? Stay there, all of you Pandavas. Why don't you stay? Can you imagine? This is the kind of instruction he was giving this old, blind person. And again, the war happened, and then all the children of Draupadi were killed. And after all that, Dhritarashtra tried to, he had the intention to kill Bhima, but because Krishna was there, he put forward that the statue of Krishna, that Duryodhana used to, play the mess with. And after all those, atrocities, and the amazing thing was all this time, Dhritarashtra was the one who was always saying, "Oh, I've been wronged so much. I was meant to be king, but I was blind. I've been wronged so much." After doing so much wrong, he's saying, "I was wrong so much." And completely opposite the nature of devotee is Yudhishthira Maharaj. Can anyone imagine, just if we put ourselves in that situation, someone has been torturing us, someone who was meant to take care of us, they mistreat us, they try to kill us number of times, they take away whatever we have made with our own effort, the kingdom, Indraprastha. They insult our wife, they try to kill us many, many times, even after losing the war. And after that, he was still so worried about his uncle. I would like to hear from someone, any devotee on the call. Can you say, what is the underlying principle that Yudhishthira Maharaj is following? Any guess? It's not hard, but I just wanted you to say this, like, what's really happening here?
Forgiveness and compassion.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu. And if you can go further up, forgiveness and compassion, further up, like up a level, and that all belongs to one more guess or some more. I mean, that's definitely right what Shailesh Prabhu you said, but there's something more that I was looking. There could be many dimensions to the same thing. Anyone else would like to guess, please? It's pretty straightforward actually. One more guess. Nothing is wrong. It all will be right, irrespective of whatever the answer is. Okay. Here's the thought. For Yudhishthira Maharaj, yes. Someone wants to speak? Coming? Kanta Mata? Okay. Yudhishthira Maharaj's name is what? He's son of Dharmaraj.
He was Dharmaraj, yeah, son of Dharmaraja. So
Dharma.
he thought this is his dharma
Yes.
to protect Dhritarashtra.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he would always follow his dharma.
Yeah.
No conditions. He played the match of gambling because it was dharma that his uncle, who's like his parent, is asking us to do something. So it's dharma to obey to his uncle, to his elderlies. It is his dharma, after all that has happened, it is his dharma to maintain them. And now that they are, they have gone for their own, benefit, Yudhishthira Maharaj is lamenting. Because he's saying, have I missed anything? Have I not performed my dharma properly? Now, this dharma means, what it implies, what we can only learn from the great souls, is that the dharma is unconditional. It is not about, if you do me right, I do you right. Yeah, if you treat me right, I'll treat you right. The Yudhishthira Maharaj had no such conditions. For him, he would not even consider what the other person is doing or not doing. This is why his name is like Ajata Shatru. Ajata Shatru means someone whose enemy was never born. What does it mean? For Yudhishthira Maharaj, there is no one. Yes, Mataji.
Yudhishthira Maharaj has no enemy.
Yeah. From his enemy is not born. That means what? It's not that nobody was inimical to him. You can argue that all these, the Prasad, Duryodhana, they were all inimical. But from Yudhishthira, there was no enemy in the world. There is no one that his enemy is. So he would not consider, he would just ignore that. Every time he would just have one thought: what is my dharma? How can I serve this person? Yeah, this is his dharma. And he's like, para dukkha dukhi, oh, they must be troubled, they must be going through this, they are old, they are blind. How will they survive? What will they do? Same thing with Draupadi also, isn't it? Like when she was so, her own children were killed, but she was not willing to allow Arjun to kill Ashwatthama. Paradukha dukhi. This is how we can see why these devotees, Pandavas, were so dear to Krishna. And we can only, obviously, it is way beyond, at least for me, to like be in that situation where I can be so, as Shailesh Prabhu said, forgiving and compassionate. And like for me, dharma is important. If you see, the same aspect also comes from Bhishma. For Bhishma, he loved Pandavas more than his own life. Yeah, but his word was that he will always protect the throne. And that was his dharma that he wanted to follow. In following the dharma, nothing would come in between. Yeah, even if it has to, we can imagine someone that we love, the most, and we have to be fighting against them, almost trying to kill them. Yeah, so how dharma can be so important for someone? And if we go, obviously, the way the devotees are, the same way it's the Supreme Lord. For the Lord, although He is here, dharma samstapana arthaya, yeah, paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha dushkatam. Vinashaya cha dushkatam. Now we say, yes, He came and He annihilated all those miscreants. But the Lord is always so merciful, like, even though, yes, He annihilated the miscreants, what did He do? What happened? Whoever He killed, they got the param gati, they had they got liberated. They got, so for the Lord also, because His nature is like that, He cannot do anything wrong. He can only do right. For Him, it is like, it's said like, just like a mother, because He's the Mata, Dhata, Pitamaha, He says He's all that. Just like a child, it is said, a little infant, he's in the lap of his mother. And sometimes the child can be kicking mother, right? Not knowing what they're doing, but they're kicking mother. Mother is not taking any offense of that. She's just the same. She still continue to serve them, protect them, feed them, nourish them. So this is the nature of the Lord and His devotees. And like, there is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. Prayojan is like, be in one in the thought of the Supreme Lord. In the sense you act in the way that Supreme Lord would like you to act, and the way Supreme Lord would Himself act. This is the ultimate. Now, coming to the verses already. So the verse 48, this is like, it's a very profound verse, very profound. Yeah, so if Narad Muni has been, following, he's been almost, starting with this almost Sankhya, like, he says about, you should not lament. If you remember the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Natam shochitumar hasi, natam shochitumar, like continuously Krishna must have repeated this sentence from many ways, many directions, coming up saying, no lamentation. When he saw Yudhishthira Maharaj, lamenting, no lamentation. This is another way, another aspect. Because we can only lament when we are not clear of our own understanding of the relationship that we have with the Lord and the relationship that every jiva has with the Lord. Then only we can lament. So he's saying no lamentation. Devotees don't, like anyone to lament. Prabhupada will never allow disciples. No, we just go on, never stop. Because everything is under the control of the Lord. Yeah, it's just like we're all bound. This is a cow is bound by the rope. Something like the verse was there. So also we are all bound by the Vedic injunctions, by the karmas, actions and reactions. That's all going on. In the end, we are all just they said we are just the playthings in the hand of the Supreme Lord. And if you're a plaything, someone moves us from here to there, what are we lamenting for? There's no reason to lament. And all the affection that we believe we have, is all illusory. Because if by His will only, as he was saying, we come together and we separate. And we sometimes, could be taking some things which are so temporary in nature as if they are permanent. This is the illusion that is causing us anxiety. That's what Yudhishthira Maharaj is saying. Anxiety. You give up on your anxiety, thinking that they are helpless and you are the one who's going to protect them. And it says, Jiva Jiva Jivanam. Yeah, if then he gives example. It's amazing the example he gives. Who has no hand is the food for the one with the hand with no legs, the food for the one with the legs. And so every jiva is maintained by another jiva. Just like jiva is another body, one body maintained by another body. That's all. So if that's the situation, the guidance that Narad Muni gives is there's only one thing. You only need to worship the Supreme Lord. That is our only duty. Because in the end, everything is controlled by Him. And now in this verse, there are a couple of ways you can actually see this verse. It says, you should look at Tad idam Bhagavan Rajan, Tad idam Bhagavan Rajan. All this manifestation, Tad idam, this is also repeated, idam. All this, is manifestation that you see, is Atma Atmanam Swadrik. And see the super soul. All that he is saying is one without the second. And everything that you see in one sense, actually in every sense, is just the manifestation of the Lord's energy. Marginal energy, external energy, and internal energy that we don't get in touch with, but in the spiritual world, Prabhu explained this. So if everything is the Lord's energy, and the Lord is the protector, who are we to be lamenting about anyone? It doesn't make sense, right? So that's what he's saying. So if he's the one without the second, there's nothing else. In one way, there's nothing else exists. Nothing else exists. It's all about the Lord's energy. In one way or the other, different energies, within and without. All the jivas are also, the marginal energy is also the Lord's energy. And Prabhupada explained the difference is only when we are qualitatively one with the Lord. If we see, the Lord's power, like what Lord has created, see the material creation, and we are like infinitesimal part of the Lord. But what is the infinite of infinite? Lord himself is infinite. We are very minute. We are minute. Even the minute would have so much capability, so much strength. So what is the capacity of a soul? If you just think like that as soul, and we see that like as the devotees, because they are more and more closer to the Lord, so their conditioning and their coverage by the material nature is less and less, and you can see what they can manifest. There are also, you can say the scientists and all that, who are more towards the material side, but those who are in sync with the Lord, thinking in line of the Lord's thinking, what they can create. Look how great Acharya Srila Prabhupada, what he could do in 1966, effectively it was, when it really, started to come up, in 1977. Who can ever achieve this in the 11 years time? So this is the power of a devotee. A devotee is one who is working with the Lord. With this, it says, Devi, perception of such ephemeral happiness is only forgetful of his. So just coming back to the same point. the ephemeral means temporary nature of happiness and distress is due only to the forgetfulness of his qualities. Now his is a small, it's a small h. It's not about the Lord, which are equal to the Lord's. So we just forget it, and because we are limited, we are covered by the material nature, which is temporary, which is naturally all the time is on the verge of destruction, because every moment there is some, the minute atom is destroying. This is how the world works, and because we are connecting ourselves to that, we have the forgetting our own nature of always being bliss. Because someone who is Atma Rama is always in bliss. For him, even if they don't have nothing or they have everything, doesn't matter to them, because they're always in bliss. Because this happiness is coming from within. The soul's nature is to be happy. So it does not need any external, any temporary situation to become happy. As conscious mind. Yeah. So even though the Lord is, so even though his devotees or Jiva is forgetting his true qualities, the Lord is within. Yeah, he is a regular current from the Lord himself, from within and without. Within is means as Paramatma, without means as this Guru, Sadhu, and spiritual master. Yeah, by which to rectify the fallen soul is always being created. So the Lord is not leaving any Jiva alone. He's always helping from within. It all depends on whatever desire is. We'll come to the next verse a little bit there. From within, he corrects the desiring living being as localized Paramatma, and without, he corrects by his manifestations, spiritual master revealed scriptures. But this is the power of the soul, how much they can do, how much help is being provided in one way, like everything is given. We are ourselves, sufficient. But if we forget, Lord is helping from within and sending his messengers, books, Prabhupada books, everything. So this is the instruction Narada Muni is finally giving in that. Don't underestimate, first of all, everyone is being maintained by the Lord. And even if you think not, then you also need to understand that all the manifestation is also non-different from the Lord in quality. Verse 39. Soyam adya maharaja bhagavan bhuta bhavana kala rupa vatirno sham abhavaya suradvisham. Translation: that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the enemies from the world. It's amazing that Narada Muni is saying this. Now descended, Adya. Yeah. Adya means now. It's a small purport. Anyone would like to read? Any volunteers?
May I read it?
Yeah, please.
There are two classes of human beings, namely the envious and the obedient. Since the Supreme Lord is one and the Father of all living beings, the envious living beings are also his sons, but they are known as the Asuras. But the living beings who are obedient to the Supreme Father are called Devatas or demigods, because they are not contaminated by the material conception of life. Not only are the Asuras envious of the Lord in even denying the existence of the Lord, but they are also envious of all other living beings. The predominance of Asuras in the world is occasionally rectified by the Lord when he eliminates them from the world and establishes a rule of Devatas like the Pandavas. His designation as Kala in disguise is significant. He is not at all dangerous, but he is the transcendental form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. For the devotees, his factual form is disclosed, and for the non-devotees, he appears like Kala Rupa, which is causal form. This causal form of the Lord is not at all pleasing to the Asuras, and therefore they think of the Lord as formless in order to feel secure that they will not be vanquished by the Lord. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Okay, something very interesting here. He's not at all dangerous. Amazing, Prabhu was saying. He's not at all dangerous. So why is he perceived as dangerous by some? Prabhupada gives many times the example of, the police, someone who is following the law and order. For them, they're not scared of the police. But someone who's he's not following, he's a thief or whatever criminal acts they may be doing, they'll always be afraid. But he's not dangerous at all. Now, if we go back to the Braj Leela, now we are in, this is after the battlefield. But if you go to the Braj, and the reaction of all the devotees when they would see the Lord, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, all the gopis, when they see the Lord, taking the calf, and he was a little Krishna, and taking the calves to the village and taking them to the forest, they are all they're so protective, and they're so caring, and they're so thinking of the Lord. Lord's feet are so soft. I say, yeah, they're so soft, and he's walking on this. There'll be thorns, and there'll be pebbles. They might be hurting his soft feet, so they would feel very pained to see the Lord going there, to the forest, and they feel pain. And they when they would actually feel the softness of the Lord, when they would take the Lord, a little baby Krishna, in the lap, and they would feel the softness, and they would always be so afraid, because there's demons coming every day, practically every day, many demons maybe coming, and all sorts of things happening there. And they are always in anxiety that is anyone going to harm our little Krishna. And Lord, many times there's so many situations that happens, and Lord would not allow his Aishwarya to be or to make the devotees aware of his Aishwarya. Like example, Yashodamai, when she asked Krishna to open his mouth, and she could see the Brahmanda, including herself, in his mouth. And then she started to, who did I think this person is? He's God himself, and I've been, for a fraction of a moment, she just developed that power of, Aishwarya's, or the worshiping the Lord, and she started to actually say some prayers, and Krishna immediately realized this is not going the way it should be. He, again calls his Shakti, Yogamaya, and then Yashodamai is back. Oh, this is my little Krishna. Again, she forgets everything, and she all the memory is completely wiped out. She's not retained that memory. Likewise, Nanda Maharaj, when they saw it, there's a very beautiful description. When first time when Nanda Maharaj saw Krishna, his whole body was, like the hair coming on his hand, and his eyes, tears coming off, and he's in complete bliss looking at Krishna. Devotees were in complete bliss looking at Krishna, but when Kamsa looked at Krishna, for him it was death personified. So how can it happen if we think like that? How can the same, if you say person, who is for one set of individuals, he's so loving, and he's so beautiful, and they just want to do anything for the Lord. On the other side, this Kamsa and Shishupal and all that, who are envious and who are either afraid. So Kamsa was so afraid. Like it's also said in the Mathura, when Krishna went into the wrestling ring, all this, they were all description of how every individual who's sitting in the arena were looking at Krishna, and how they were thinking about him. And there's so many varieties there. All the ladies thinking, oh, he's so beautiful, he's so handsome, he's fighting. And some of them, like in the protection mood, like motherly mood, in Vatsalya, they're saying, oh, we should not be fighting, he's a little so young, it's not even fair. And there are, for the wrestlers who were in the arena, for them, he was looking like death personified, he and Balram. For Kamsa as well, all those who were envious of him. So it is not the fault of the Lord that, he's looking dangerous to them, because all he's doing is just, ye yathamam prapadyante tam sathave bhajamyaham. In the mood that, we are reciprocating with the Lord, he's 100% giving the same reciprocation. For him, there is no difference. It's our desire. In the end, that what it means is, it's our desire how we want to interact with the Lord, what relationship we want to have with the Lord. And it is so beautiful to have, that sweet relationship, loving relationship with the Lord. And what is the fruits of that? What is the benefit of that? It's unlimited bliss. Unlimited bliss. Okay. Next word. 130. Did I skip? Yeah, 49. Nispaditam devakrityam avasesham pradekshate tavadyuyam avikshadvam bhaved yavat iheshwaraha. Translation. The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods, and he is awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on earth. Purport. Any volunteers to read this purport? One more, last volunteer, please.
Okay, I can try,
I can
Prabhuji.
read.
Please.
Okay. Hare Krishna. The Lord descends from his abode, Krishna Loka, the topmost planet in the spiritual sky, in order to help the demigod administrators of the material world when they are greatly vexed by the Asuras, who are envious not only of the Lord but also of his devotees. As referred to above, the conditioned living beings contact material association by their own choice, dictated by a strong desire to lord it over the resources of the material world and become imitation lords of all they survey. Everyone is trying to become an imitation god. There is keen competition among such imitation gods, and such competitors are generally known as asuras. When there are too many asuras in the world, then it becomes a hell for those who are devotees of the Lord. Due to the growth of the asuras, the mass of people who are generally devoted to the Lord by nature and the pure devotees of the Lord, including the demigods and higher planets, pray to the Lord for relief. And the Lord either descends personally from his abode or deputes some of his devotees to remodel the fallen condition of human society or even animal society. Such disruptions take place not only in human society, but also among animals, birds, or other living beings, including the demigods in the higher planets. Lord Sri Krishna descended personally to vanquish asuras like Kansa, Jarasandh, and Shishupal, and during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir, almost all these asuras were killed by the Lord. Now he was awaiting the annihilation of his own dynasty called the Yadu Vansha, who appeared by his will in this world. He wanted to take them away before his own departure to his eternal abode. Narada, like Vidura, did not disclose the imminent annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, but indirectly gave a hint to the king and his brothers to wait till the incident happened and the Lord departed. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prasad. Yeah, it's amazing. That's what is interesting, I find here. Narad Muni did not disclose, and he's saying, yeah, you wait as long as the Lord is here on the earth. Whereas it seemed like the news was already with Vidura, and we'll read that in the second canto. So when Buddha would meet Vidura, and they would have discussions. After that, he had come. So Narad Muni is also not disclosing. This is one of the Nitish, not the Nitish, but this is mentioned in the, not the main scripture, but some of the Subhashit and the other Chanakya Niti, so many other Dharma Shastra, it is said that we should never be the conveyor of bad news. And you can see the example here. Vidura did not disclose that. And Narad Muni is almost, he must know definitely. And he's almost saying that they're still here. So just wait, for him. As long as the Lord is here on the earth, he can also stay. Getting the rest, waiting. He's actually saying the opposite somehow. That's very interesting. So the injunction there is that all the bad news will anyway come to the recipient somehow. So nobody wants to be the carrier of the bad news. We should not be the carrier of bad news. If that news comes automatically, and that's okay. Somehow it will happen. But nobody should be, the reason for the grief for anyone. Yeah. So just I was thinking one more time in this Yaduvanshi on the same theme that we were discussing before, how the Lord is indifferent to all situations, to asuras or suras, whoever. He's helping everyone the way they would like to be helped. And for him, there is no difference. Just like for Yudhishthira, there is no, he's just following his dharma, Bhishma following his dharma, Lord also following his dharma, and Lord is always in bliss. And when you talk about the annihilation of his own dynasty, it is actually the Gandhari, she became the vehicle for that. And when she cursed Krishna, because when they were all coming back and the news was given to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, she had so much, anger and disappointment. As a mother, it is okay. And she actually cursed Krishna that the way you have become the reason for annihilation of our children dynasty, your dynasty will also be. And Krishna just smiles and says, thank you so much. For him, it's not a matter of distance, because in the end, it is his plan only. Everyone has been saying that everyone is just the plaything in his hand. And that can apply to all of us, every single living entity, individual, whoever we are, in whatever situation. If we consider it this way, that we are only the plaything in his hand, then where is the lamentation? And we know that his hands are always good. So we have all the protection. So it's all wonderful. Thank you so much, devotees. It's 1:09. Anyone would like to share any the realization or any comments or questions, thoughts, reflections? Are they making sense what I was saying? Sorry.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanavad Pranam, Subhash Prabhupada.
So,
Thank you for a wonderful class as always. They're an echo. We've got two things on it. Give me a second. We'll move to another room. I've got me and my wife are listening to different instruments. Sorry, Prabhu. I just wanted to say some wonderful points you brought up. But in our disciplic succession through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Rupa Goswami, as you know, Rupa Goswami gives us the higher principle of Anya Bilashitam Sunyam, Anukulim Krishna. That principle actually is a higher principle than Dharma.
Yes, of course.
So it's important to, that's why Krishna demonstrates that through his very beloved devotee, Bhishma Pita, as to how he, although he was following his dharma, actually that dharma was wrong because it was not pleasing Krishna. And so he had to pay the price for that, as it were.
Little bit like it's not that he was not pleasing dharma. Krishna was always, if he was not pleasing dharma, Krishna would not be there at his deathbed. So absolutely, Bhishma is one of the Mahajan. So he
I think through Krishna's arrangement, it was his leela, but to demonstrate to us that following the dharma on its own, without Krishna at the center, it has little value. And that was, I think, the principle that Krishna was trying to teach us through that Leela of his, I believe. I'm sorry if I've got that wrong. But all I was trying to say is that, of course, what Rupa Goswami has taught us through Nectar of Devotion is that the higher principle is not necessarily Dharma, is to keep Krishna at the center. And if he is pleased, then that is Dharma.
Yes. So in the end, yeah. So absolutely.
Similar to Yashoda Maya, running to save this milk that was spilling. She thought that was a dharma and trying to please Krishna, but that didn't please him directly, because pleasing him and feeding him was what he wanted. So he got angry. So I mean, of course, there are some. These are very, very deep. These are all very, very deep philosophical points. But the principle I was trying to point out is people following dharma for the sake of it, without necessarily keeping Krishna at the center. Pledges and promises, and I have to keep my promise. If that promise is actually going to take you away from Krishna, that promise is of no value.
Absolutely.
Which is,
yes.
Keeping principles on their own without the satisfaction and pleasure of Krishna at the center and your devotional upliftment. If Krishna is not at the center, then that principle has little value of its own.
Yes, absolutely. So
that was the only point I was trying to elaborate on.
That's also very important. This is the other side of, because the beauty of our philosophy is never black and white. It's not this or the other. It's not like that you will go to hell or you go to heaven, you'll come back. Some of the other religions talk like that. So it's very fine, and dharma is actually also, it's mentioned, all these scriptures, all the great souls say the same. To understand dharma, this could be a discussion by itself as to, dharma, who can understand what's the right thing to do. But if you see, obviously keeping Krishna in the center. But if you see these devotees, for them, the underlying principle of the dharmas is always paradukha dukhi. For Vaishnavas, what is higher is they have, if you talk about Draupadi, like Krishna saying, no, kill him. He's the one, he's a perpetrator. We've discussed this before. But he's more happy when Draupadi says, don't kill. So although apparently he's saying he's in the favor that he should be killed. But he's more happy when he sees his devotees following. Because if one way you see Draupadi's Prabhupada, right, it's quite heavily there, because she's a soft-hearted lady, she's thinking like that. In one purport, Prabhupada saying that. But and also you could say that, well, it is okay, she's following a dharma, mother nature of a mother, stuff. But that's very high. It's very high. So if the devotees follow, for us, at our level, we follow our dharma, it's going to be more pleasing. Before we get to this level of Madhavendra Puri, for him says he does not really matter whether he is chanting in Gayatri or not, or whether he's done the offering oblations to the forefathers, or done any of those activities which everyone of us has to do. He does not care about that. I mean, that's the pure devotee level. At our level, sadhaka level, we follow very strictly for ourselves, not for others, but for our own self. We follow everything strictly. But this is very nice discussion. Thank you so much, Shailesh, for this. Always you have this higher principle that you bring, which is really nice. Thank you so much. Hey, Hare Krishna, any other thoughts? Stand to. Thank you so much, devotees. Once again, please forgive any offenses.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for very nice talk.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.